What will happen after Pope Francis? According to the mysterious prophecy of Saint Malachy, he holds the 111th spot on a list that supposedly predicts each pope until the end of the church as we know it. But here's where things get even more unsettling. After Francis, there is no number 112 with a clear name, but instead an enigmatic figure, Petrus Romanus, the so-called Black Pope. Who is this character really? Is he a person or a symbol of the end of an era? And most importantly, are we getting closer to the fulfillment of this ancient prophecy? In this video, I'm going to tell you the story of Saint Malachy's prophecy, how it's been accurate in the past, and why some believe we're on the verge of an unprecedented change in the church. Get ready, because what you're about to discover could change your perception of history and the future. Who was Saint Malachy, and how did the prophecy come about? Imagine walking through the hallways of a medieval abbey where the candlelight barely illuminates the ancient manuscripts. Among these dusty texts, there is one in particular that has puzzled historians, religious figures, and conspiracy theorists for centuries. A document that, according to many, predicts the fate of the Catholic Church. But who was the man behind this mysterious revelation? It was the 12th century when a child was born in Ireland, during a time of wars, superstitions, and religious fervor. His name was Malachy of Armagh, a priest who would eventually become an archbishop. He was known for his deep spirituality and for something even more unsettling. He was said to have prophetic gifts. According to legend, Malachy not only performed miracles and had visions, but also saw the future with disturbing clarity. But his most terrifying vision wasn't about his own people or his time. It was about the coming centuries of the church. The year is 1139. Malachy travels to Rome to meet Pope Innocent II. It was a long and dangerous journey, filled with threats and bandits, but when he finally arrives in the Eternal City, something strange happens. According to the story, when he saw the Vatican, Malachy fell into a trance. His eyes clouded, his body shook, and a succession of terrifying images appeared in his mind. He saw all the popes who would rule the church until the end of time, one after another, until the very last. When he awoke, with a pale face and trembling hands, he began writing frantically. 112 phrases in Latin, each one describing a pope from his time until the end of the church, a finale that, according to the prophecy, is very near. After his death in 1148, Saint Malachy's prophecy disappeared. It wasn't mentioned for over 400 years, until in 1595, a Benedictine monk named Arnold Wion published the text in a book called Lignum Vitae. But this is where it gets even more mysterious. Some believe the original manuscript was hidden by the Vatican because it revealed too much. Others claim the prophecy was forged in the 16th century to influence the election of a pope. But if it was false, how could it have been right about so many popes? How could it predict details of their lives centuries in advance? And the most unsettling thing of all, if the list has been accurate so far, what does it say about the last pope? Because, according to Saint Malachy, after Francis, there will be no other like him, but a leader who will mark the end of the church as we know it. In the next part, we will analyze the list of the 112 popes and the terrifying coincidences that have led many to believe the prophecy is real. The list of the 112th popes, coincidences or real prophecy. When Arnold Wion revealed the prophecy in 1595, the world was stunned. On its pages was a list that supposedly described all the popes who would govern the church from Celestine II in 1143 to the last pope, the one who would witness the end of times. Each of these popes didn't have a name, but a Latin phrase. And the most terrifying part is that many of these descriptions seem to match reality in ways that defy all logic. Did Saint Malachy really see the future? Let's look at some of the most striking cases. The prophecy doesn't mention names, but its descriptions seem to match the pontiffs who have ruled over the centuries. Pope Clement XIII, 1758 to 1769, Rosa Umbriae, the Rose of Umbria. Clement XIII belonged to the Franciscan order, founded in Umbria, Italy, and his coat of arms featured a rose. Coincidence? Pope Pius VII, 1800 to 1823, Aquila Rapax, the rapacious eagle. This pope ruled during a time when Napoleon Bonaparte, whose emblem was an eagle, dominated Europe and even kidnapped Pope Pius VII. Pope Leo XIII, 1878 to 1903, Lumen in Caelo, light in the sky. This pope's coat of arms featured a bright star, which many interpreted as the light in the sky mentioned in the prophecy. But this is where it gets even more chilling. Pope John Paul II and the eclipse prophecy. When it came time for Pope John Paul II, his motto in Saint Malachy's list was De labore solis, meaning from the work of the sun. At first glance, this doesn't make much sense. But the incredible thing is that Pope John Paul II was born on May 18, 1920, the same day as a solar eclipse. And if that's not enough, when he passed away on April 2, 2005, another solar eclipse was visible in the northern hemisphere. Two eclipses marking his birth and death. How could Saint Malachy have predicted this 800 years earlier? Pope Benedict XVI, the last pope before chaos. After Pope John Paul II, the prophecy points to a pope with the motto Gloria Olivae, the glory of the olive. When Pope Benedict XVI was elected, many wondered what the connection to the olive was, until they discovered an unsettling detail. The Benedictine order, from which he took his name, has a branch called the Olivetans. Pope Benedict XVI was a conservative pope who tried to maintain peace within the church, but his resignation in 2013 left a void that had never occurred in the modern era. This is where we come to Pope number 111, Francis. The prophecy assigns the number 111 to Pope Benedict XVI, which would mean that Francis shouldn't be on the list. However, there are two theories. Some believe that Saint Malachy simply didn't account for Francis, since his election was the result of Pope Benedict XVI's resignation. Others think that Francis is part of the final papacy and the beginning of chaos, leading us to the most mysterious figure in the prophecy, Petrus Romanus, the last pope. And who is this last pope? According to some interpretations, after Francis, the Black Pope will come, an enigmatic figure who, according to certain theorists, is already in power. Now, let's explore who this Black Pope could be and why some believe the Vatican is already in his hands. Saint Malachy left a final name, Petrus Romanus, the 112th Pope, who would preside over the Church in times of tribulation. But this is where it gets even more mysterious. If Benedict XVI was number 111 and Francis isn't on the list, what does this mean? Some believe the prophecy is false or misinterpreted, but others claim that Francis is only the prelude to the last pope, a dark figure who will bring the end of the Church as we know it. But who is Petrus Romanus? Does the Black Pope really exist, operating in the shadows? Is this the end of the Church? The text describing the last pope says the following: "In the last persecution of the Holy Church, Peter the Roman will reign, who will shepherd his flock amidst many tribulations. After this, the city of the 7 hills will be destroyed, and the terrible judge will judge his people." The end. This passage has been interpreted in many ways. Some believe it means the Vatican will fall. Others see it as a metaphor for the end of the Catholic Church as we know it. But some claim that there is already a figure within the Vatican who fits this prophecy. And here is where the enigmatic Black Pope comes into play. There has been talk of a mysterious Black Pope, a leader who operates in the shadows, whose influence is so great that some believe he is the true ruler of the Vatican. But who is he really? Historically, the title of Black Pope has been associated with the Superior General of the Jesuits, the order to which Pope Francis belongs. This figure is called the Black Pope because although he doesn't wear white like the Pope, he wields immense power within the Church. Some theorists believe this person is the one who truly makes decisions in the Catholic Church, while the visible Pope is only a symbol. Now, here comes the most unsettling part. Francis is the first Jesuit Pope in history, and if we follow tradition, this would mean that the Pope and the Black Pope are now the same person. But what does this mean for the prophecy? If we follow Saint Malachy's logic, after Francis, Petrus Romanus would come, a pope who would lead the Church to its final destiny. But if Francis is already the Black Pope, could he himself be Petrus Romanus? Some signs have disturbed the believers. The decline of the Church. During Pope Francis' papacy, the Vatican has faced internal crises, scandals, and loss of followers. Internal division. For the first time in centuries, there is a Pope Emeritus, Benedict XVI, and an active Pope, Francis, causing a fracture within the Church. Radical changes. Francis has made controversial decisions, such as his approach to opening up to other religions and his stance on social issues. For many, these are signs that we are living in the tribulation times foretold in the prophecy. In the next part, we'll analyze the most unsettling part, the current signs that may indicate we are indeed witnessing the fulfillment of the final prophecy. Are we at the end of times? Is this the end of the papacy, or the collapse of the Church as we know it? The prophecy of Saint Malachy is intriguing, but what really leaves many on edge is the final interpretation. What will happen when the last pope arrives? Some believe that not only will the papacy end, but the Catholic Church will crumble entirely as we know it today. The crisis of faith is more present than ever. The faithful are abandoning churches at an alarming rate, while scandals and internal divisions among the clergy seem endless. All of this could be signaling the start of a radical change within the ecclesiastical institution. But if we look more closely, we see that this is not an isolated process. The visions of Fatima and the warnings from the Virgin Mary seem to align with these events. In those visions, a great tribulation is foretold, one that will affect the Church, a punishment for its sins. For some, the departure of Benedict XVI and the arrival of Pope Francis, along with the growing crisis, could be the manifestation of these predictions. And if that weren't enough, the Apocalypse also mentions the collapse of great religious institutions in the final days, including the fall of the Church. According to the prophecy, the faithful will be persecuted and the end of the papacy will be imminent. Is this what we're witnessing? Is this the time when the prophetic events are coming to pass? But the deeper question is, are we on the brink of a final collapse of the Church? Or is it simply the closing of one cycle to make way for a new era of faith? Perhaps we are not witnessing the end, but a transformation. But if Saint Malachy's prophecy is true, who will lead this new era is something many still don't know. This could be the beginning of an era of chaos and reconstruction, or it could be the end of an institution with centuries of history. But as always, time will tell whether Saint Malachy's prophecy is simply a warning or a revelation of destiny. Now I ask you, are we truly witnessing the end of the papacy, or is the Church merely living through its final transformation? What future awaits us? After analyzing the prophecies, the events that are already happening, and the signs that seem to align with what was predicted, one thing is clear: the time of certainty is behind us. The enigma of the Black Pope remains a mystery, a figure that could represent a radical change in the history of the Church. Who is this Black Pope, really? Some say he would be a pope of African origin. Others talk about a pope outside the tradition. Someone who would bring transformation and renewal, but also darkness and challenge. This pope, if he comes, would mark the end of an era and open the doors to a new one, possibly even harder to understand. Now, as the world continues to change, and new figures like Donald Trump emerge in global politics, many wonder if the collapse of old institutions will be the prelude to a new era, not just for the Church, but for all of humanity. But one of the most crucial points remains the Black Pope, a leader who could bring answers to the great spiritual dilemmas of humanity. Are we on the brink of witnessing the fulfillment of an ancient prophecy? History teaches us that in the darkest moments, the greatest revelations can arise. But as always, only time will give us the final answer. If you want to continue discovering the darkest secrets, the most intriguing prophecies, and the mysteries of the world, subscribe now to our channel. You won't want to miss what's coming, because in this space, the most surprising answers are always within your reach. See you in the next video.